A day in my life as a New York City attorney.
Wake up and do my 12-step morning
On my walk home, I answer.
After lunch, I make
Good morning. I was at a wedding last weekend, so
good
take
In
whatever
the
you want.
afternoon, I have a ton of calls for
as a New York City attorney.
Yep, that was me some days. I'm Cece, and for those of you who are new to my channel, I was an associate in big law or at large law firms for more than 5 years, which was great money that really helped me pay down my $250,000 in law school loans. But it was also an extremely demanding job, mentally, emotionally, and physically to a certain extent. But I wouldn't exactly say that the job is hard, because while there are some tasks that require deep thinking and contemplation, some of the tasks are more rote, with some tasks being straight up mind-numbing in terms of boringness. What does make the job hard, though, is the on-call nature of it. This might be true for all professional services jobs, but because of how much money clients are paying for your legal services in big law, responsiveness and speed are part of the expectation. Some partners will explicitly tell you that they expect you to respond to emails within 15 minutes. Some partners are even worse because they'll expect that, but not tell you. Point being, there are a lot of invisible rules in big law, and if you're looking for what is essentially a good grade at work, you have to find out what the grading rubric is going to be ahead of time. That's where I come in. Throughout my tenure as an associate, I developed a ton of strategies for surviving and even thriving in that non-stop 24/7 work environment, and I want to share those strategies with you. I think these strategies are helpful for corporate environments beyond just law, and I even use some in my personal relationships as well, so I hope that these help you as much as they've helped me. I'll go through 7 strategies in total, 5 of them strategies for the workplace and 2 of them strategies for work-life balance. So let's get into it. Strategy number 1. Take advantage of cognitive biases. The first months in any new work environment is really crucial because it establishes you in the organization. It's when people come to develop expectations around you. So I like to really use the first 6 months to lean into 2 cognitive biases that people have: the halo effect and inconsistent rewards. The halo effect is the tendency for positive impressions of a person in one area to positively influence one's opinion or feelings of that same person in another area. It's why attractive people are often perceived as being more competent than less attractive people, leading to higher pay, more promotions, and overall greater career success. It's also why, even though 14.5% of men in the US population are over 6 feet tall, 58% of Fortune 500 CEOs are. I guess the logic is something like, because they're tall, they must be good at business, which is clearly illogical, but hey, that's cognitive biases for ya. They don't make sense, but we also typically don't confront them enough to realize that they don't make sense, which is why I'm a huge proponent of making cognitive biases work for you. So how can you make the halo effect work for you? Be on your absolute best behavior these first 6 months, like your best behavior, or behavior that you likely won't have the energy to replicate again until your next new job. Why? Because if people come to know you initially as responsive, positive, and competent, that reputation, that halo, will follow you around for the rest of your time at the firm. And take advantage of the beauty premium as well. I know that putting on makeup every morning can be a pain, but especially in the first few months, that additional edge can give you leeway in the future to come in looking a mess. The halo effect also comes in handy when you make mistakes, and I mean it, you will make mistakes on the job because that's inevitable, so it's good to provide as much of a forgiveness cushion for yourself as possible. The second cognitive bias that is helpful to take advantage of is inconsistent rewards. Have you ever wondered why gambling is so popular, or why you feel disproportionately happy when a usually inconsistent texter texts you back? That's because inconsistent rewards make people pay more attention to what they're doing and be more motivated to do it well. Okay, Cece, you're probably saying, what on earth does that have to do with being a big law associate? Well, one of the biggest traps I've seen associates fall into is responding to emails instantaneously every single time because they feel like they need to. They're like, that's my job, right? But the amount of physical anxiety that associates have over emails is unreal. To this day, I still get heart palpitations if I get an email from partners I used to work with, even though I'm clearly not working with them anymore. But email anxiety is real, and if you don't take steps to control it, like putting your work phone in another room after 10 p.m. and not checking your work phone first thing when you wake up, your email anxiety will control you. So how do inconsistent rewards help with managing email anxiety? Instead of consistent consistently responding to all emails within 15 minutes, be inconsistent about how quickly you respond to them. Sometimes 5 minutes later, sometimes a few hours later. The idea is to subconsciously signal to email recipients that they shouldn't expect you to respond instantaneously all the time, because once they expect that from you, they will feel subconsciously that you owe it to them. So use inconsistent rewards to get them to appreciate your fast responses when it happens, but also be okay when they don't receive fast responses. That will give you the flexibility in the future to make your own judgment calls about when you need to respond to an email, rather than be chained to this idea that the other person expects you to answer right away. And just to be clear, I am not telling you to purposely not respond to urgent emails or to put your phone away even if you've been told ahead of time to expect overnight work. That is not it at all. Be a responsible adult. Use your good judgment. If something is urgent, treat it as such. If you know there might be late night work, keep your phone by you on the loudest volume for calls just in case. Be there for your team, but you also need to be there for yourself. And I always found that if I didn't force myself to prioritize myself, I just never would. I would always prioritize the needs and wants of third parties. So this email response pattern is just that, a strategy to help you prioritize managing your own email anxiety. But don't be stupid and don't use it as an excuse to drop the ball. Strategy number 2. Time management is about managing people, not time, so manage up. When you have a bunch of assignments and someone asks you to do another assignment, you're going to have to manage your time. But time management isn't just about blocking off time in your calendar for all these tasks. It's about managing the people who are giving you the assignments. Introducing managing upwards, my favorite tactic and probably the single most important thing you can take away from this video. Managing upwards is figuring out the partners and senior associates' motivations and incentives, and then arranging yourself with that context in mind. You know how in sports they have starting formations and plays, but also need to dynamically move around as the ball changes position? It's kind of like that. You can't just stay in your starting formation as the ball moves and remain helpful to the whole team. As the ball moves, as the other players move, you need to figure out where you'll be most helpful. Anytime you get a new assignment, try to put yourself in the assigning person's shoes. Who do they report to? Who are they trying to make happy? What schedule do they keep? What are they really trying to accomplish? Imagining those things will help you figure out what, then, is most of a value add for you to do. For example, if your team gets a client email asking for, I don't know, a legal research memo, the typical associate would probably just wait for the partner to assign it out. Don't do that. Take a moment to figure out if you have an idea of how to get the task done. The mental load of delegating and managing can be huge, and you can actually practice taking on that mental load as an associate by managing upward. Try to imagine how you would get it done, and then write that proposed plan down for the partner, even including proposed timelines and methodology. And yeah, they might totally say, no, let's do it this other way, but they'll probably be thankful that you're thinking about the big picture too, and also giving them something to respond to. It is always much easier to respond to a proposal from someone else than to come up with it from scratch. As a junior associate, you'll probably be wrong much of the time because you just don't have as much experience, but you can still help others by giving them something thoughtful to comment on. And I promise you, managing up will also help you delegate in the future to your own juniors. So think of managing up as the chance to develop your management skills even when you don't explicitly have junior associates to manage. And the best part about managing up, because you're proposing the initial timeline, you can propose a timeline that works for you and your schedule. Left to their own devices, some partners are horrible managers, like just awful. They won't attend to some client ask until 2 days before it's due and just forward you the email and ask you to do it by the next day, even though the client asked them 2 weeks ago. And bam, any evening plans you had, ruined. But you can avoid that by helping them do the managing. When that first client ask comes in, get ahead of the management and present the partner with a timeline that works for you so you can live your own life and also get your work done. Say you've been asked to conduct due diligence and produce a draft memo for the partner to review. The memo is due to the client in 2 weeks, which means that you need to work backwards from there. The partner will probably need 2 or 3 days to review it, so propose that timeline to the partner of your own initiative, and even pick the exact day so that it suits your own dinner plans, out of work plans, theater, whatever. They won't know and they won't care. You're getting the job done. And of course, present your proposal with all the deference and politeness that is required in big law. You're not asking the partner to do your timeline. You're presenting a proposal to them and asking them what they think about it. There's a huge difference in tone between the two and also how they will receive it. And if you're really staring down the barrel of 2 assignments that are due and you know you can't finish both of them, like really cannot pull an all-nighter to get it done and did not have the wherewithal to ask for an extension earlier, then you can use the managing upward strategy too. Ask yourself, do any of the assigning attorneys typically give fake deadlines? Which client is typically not super demanding in terms of urgency? For those people, you might have more wiggle room there to ask for an extension on that assignment. It can feel a little weird to psychoanalyze your colleagues and your clients, but trust me, being mindful about the real interests at play helps a lot. I know that some people think that being a lawyer is all about reading and writing and the law, but no. Lawyering is a people business. If you just want reading and writing in the law, go into legal academia. And even then, there is a substantial part of academia that will be very much about people. But legal practice is very much about people skills and sales. And even though I'm telling you right now how to decide which assignment to ask for an extension on, only ask for extensions sparingly, okay? You definitely burn some capital with people when you ask for extensions. They are only last resorts. But how do you avoid asking for extensions in the first place? That brings us to strategy number 3, to figure out when to start working on something. Build in more time than you estimate to account for interruptions and the unexpected. Let's go back to that due diligence memo example. You have 1.5 weeks to get it to the partner for review, and you estimate that it will realistically only take you about 4 solid days of work. Do you wait until 4 days before it's due to the partner to start? No, just no. That is a recipe for disaster because nothing in life ever goes perfectly according to plan. This is just a rule of thumb, but you should always add 50% time to whatever you've estimated it will take to do something. So if you've taken a look at how many documents there are to review and figured you could write the memo in 1 day for a total of 4 days of solid work, you need to then add another 2 days. Even though you might think you could do it in 4 days, treating it as a 6-day effort will help you better organize your time and start working early enough to account for fire drills, random admin stuff that pops up, all that. So for this due diligence memo that's due in a week and a half, you should actually start working on it in like 2 or 3 days. And this is true too if a client or a partner asks you, oh, when's reasonable as well. Even if you really think you could research and write a killer memo today and send it to them tomorrow, don't propose that timeline. Propose the following day so you can add in that 50% padding yourself. And if you happen to get it done earlier, great. It's always better to underpromise and overdeliver. People don't get mad when that happens. They do, however, get mad when you overpromise and can't keep that promise. Oh, and just another tip for mid-levels and seniors. If you're supervising a junior associate, you'll need to give them a bit of a fake deadline in the beginning of working with them. I know you probably hated it when you got a fake deadline, but it's unfortunately necessary so that you can build in feedback time and a second round for the junior, rather than getting it back and realizing you have to do it all over yourself because there's no time to ask them to do it again. And when you give the timelines for things, build that extra 50% padding in yourself for them so that you won't be left holding the bag at 10 p.m. and then have to work until 5 a.m. to fix it, which is a true story. All right, strategy number 4. Sometimes delay sending your emails. This tip isn't so much about managing your email anxiety, it's more about the optics of working. You'll probably find that some big law lawyers are really into FaceTime and being green or being online. I know of one mid-level associate who once sent a junior associate an email asking why she was showing as offline on Microsoft Teams. The mid-level even CC'd the partner on this, which is honestly one of the biggest dick moves that a mid-level can do. You just know that he wanted to somehow catch this junior associate and shame her and somehow look good in front of the partner in comparison. And you know what the junior associate was doing? Restarting her computer. So yeah, you'll absolutely meet people who are judgmental about the optics of work and take extreme pride in working all the time. Going back to our cognitive biases, you can tell that they're applying a halo effect to being available or online all the time, somehow thinking that if you're online 24/7, then you produce quality work, which isn't really the case because quality work on some level also requires rest. But whatever, like I said, you can't change cognitive biases, so you just gotta make them work for you. If you find yourself working with attorneys who are super into the optics of working at all hours, don't always send substantive emails right when you write them. Instead, hold on to them and send them late at night before you go to bed, or really early if you're an early riser. The idea is to not trigger their sensors for an uncommitted associate. They're looking for reasons to deem you uncommitted, so don't let them. One thing that I would do sometimes is finish up my work in the office around midnight and then get a cab home and then log on again right before bed, so around 1 a.m., and then send that email. It's shady, I suppose, but you know what? I don't feel bad about playing games when working with people who themselves play games and are so hellbent on forcing their ideas of what a good associate is onto me when I and many other attorneys and business school professors don't agree. At this point, you might be wondering, okay, Cece, you're telling us about all these ways to do less work, but won't that get me fired? No, because of strategy number 5, which will help ensure that you can do quality work that is valuable to the firm while not having to rely on killing yourself and sacrificing sleep and your mental health and physical health to stand out. Figure out and develop your professional comparative advantage as early as possible. I think one of the biggest myths in biglaw is that as long as you focus on hitting your billable hours, you'll have a good time at the firm. That, I'm sorry to inform you, is just flat out wrong. Hitting your billable hours is the bare minimum for growing your reputation. You're going to have to do that. And more. So what could this more be? Well, that's kind of up to you and your career goals. If it doesn't involve joining the ranks of equity partnership, then lean into becoming an expert in something that the other partners and associates don't know as much about. Think big picture about your practice group, the firm, the legal industry at large. What do you see missing? What needs aren't being met? What new technology or societal advancement is something that isn't well understood? For example, during the dawn of e-discovery, an associate might speak with an e-discovery vendor to learn as much as possible about search terms, about this weird world of e-discovery, becoming the firm's resident e-discovery expert, something that the partners who didn't really interface with e-discovery as juniors have as much experience with. That makes this e-discovery expert now indispensable in every single litigation. And note that there's a clear analog right now with AI tools for legal work, which presents a huge opportunity for enterprising associates, if you're interested in that. Or when an associate hears about blockchain and cryptocurrency, they can spend time understanding everything they can about it and then brief partners on the legal implications of blockchain. Or your professional comparative advantage could even be as simple as knowing how to work well with a partner whom others don't work well with. If you can successfully manage up for a bad delegator, you make yourself indispensable to that person, while others won't really know how to handle them and just avoid their book of clients altogether. And if you want your professional comparative advantage to help you join the ranks of equity partnership, then you also got to start homing your business development skills, like begin when you're a 4th year. Make connections with people who might hire you or be able to hire you in the future. Learn how to sell and network in a way that feels authentic and comfortable to you. Gone are the days of biglaw where a senior partner will just hand over their entire book of business to you. Sure, that might still happen sometimes, but it's not a good way to take control of your career. You are the person who cares the most about your career, so act like it. No one, not even your beloved partner mentor, whom you think will always have your back, will care more about your career than you do. Even though I mentioned that hitting your hours is the bare minimum to be a good associate, the truth of the matter is that over time, as you become more senior, if you have a large enough book of business, if you have enough clients, if you're just famous enough for the firm to want to associate with you, then your hours really matter much, much less. So think about the life you want. Do you want to be indebted to the 2,000 billable hours year in and year out, praying during every single recession that you don't get canned? Or do you want to add so much value to the firm in some way that they wouldn't even think about firing you, even if you aren't the highest biller around because you're hard to replace? If you want to learn more about how to develop your professional comparative advantage, head over to my Substack. I've linked it below, where I go more in depth about becoming a standout associate. Okay, we've talked a lot about strategies in the workplace, but let's now talk about work-life balance strategies. Because surviving in biglaw isn't just about knowing what to do at work, it's about figuring out how to have a fulfilling life outside of work as well, which brings me to strategy number 6. try to do at least one thing every day for yourself and not for your job. This can be really hard to do because being a biglaw associate is a greedy job. The job will take as much of your time as is available if you don't set boundaries. So how do you set boundaries? First, you got to figure out what this one thing for yourself is, what it is that fills you up spiritually, what helps you decompress or find life worth living. For me, it was physical exercise. For you, it could be cooking dinner, playing guitar, journaling, getting a manicure, whatever. And then put that activity into your work calendar every day. You don't have to name it like play guitar, but just code it in some way so that it takes up space in your work calendar. For example, I would usually block off an hour or two in the evenings to work out, depending on if I plan on coming back to the office to continue working or going home and showering first. So every day from 6:30 to 7:30 or 8:30 or 7:30 to 8:30 to 9:30, it just said in my calendar, self-care. I like this evening workout because it gave me another burst of energy, which allowed me to work really late into the night, which I liked because my ideal work times are actually 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. But you can pick whatever time block makes sense for you and makes you feel best. Maybe it's 6:30 to 7:30 in the morning to journal. The point of this isn't that you will do it every day. The point is that you are intentionally making space for yourself. Because if you don't have that time blocked off on your own calendar for yourself, other people will inevitably fill that time for you by placing meetings on your calendar, thinking that you're available then, when the meeting could actually wait until later in the day or the next day. And that's a bummer because the value of that meeting for them is probably less than the value of taking care of yourself for a bit every day for you. And again, I'm not saying to prioritize your cooking dinner every time over work all of the time. If there is an important client call, if there's an urgent matter, you're gonna have to order dinner and not cook. You're gonna have to not do this one thing for yourself. Be a responsible adult, but also be responsible to yourself and try to do something for yourself every day. And the final strategy, number 7, know why you're still there. Chances are that you'll meet some attorneys who were born to be biglaw associates and partners. They love the work, they love the pace, they just love everything about it. You'll also meet some attorneys who don't absolutely love what they do, but are okay with it, like it, it's a job, and it helps a lot in providing them and their family with the lifestyle and opportunities that they want. And then you'll meet the attorneys who don't seem to know why they're there at all. They'll make jokes about how hellish their lives are, talk about how the golden handcuffs really got them, and never mention the parts of the job that they actually like. This group, to me, is the saddest. I think one of the greatest things about biglaw is that it is single-handedly the most straightforward and shortest path to advancing your socioeconomic status in the US. If you love blueprints for fast economic advancement, biglaw is incredible. But the thing with blueprints is that sometimes, as you're building your dream career, you'll start wanting to deviate from the blueprint. You'll feel, oh, I don't know, this window feels like it should be south-facing instead of east-facing. It turns out I like southern exposure more than eastern after all, which is true. I did discover that I really like southern exposure. My point is that as you go along your career, you will change. You will learn a lot more about what being a lawyer is like and also about yourself. And unlike school, where there's always a graduation date around the corner that will push you to make the next decision about your life, your adult career won't ever really force you to do that unless you get laid off. So you need to ask yourself on an annual basis why you are still where you are in your career. And if there isn't a reason, if you can't name your why, even if it's something like paying down your student loans faster, then you gotta go do something where you can explain to yourself why you're there. Because we spend so much of our life working and we only have one life. So it really doesn't make sense to spend so much of your life doing something that you don't even know why you're doing. And there you have it, my 7 strategies for surviving and thriving in biglaw. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you want to keep up more with my own career pursuits, such as writing my book right now, and trying to figure out what comes after biglaw, you can head on over to my Substack if you like reading, or my Instagram if you like pictures. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch, and if you thought this video was valuable, I'd super appreciate you hitting that like and subscribe. Love you all, and see you next month. Mwah!